Hello everyone, welcome back again to the Education Diary day number 1 for the IoT platform or simple Internet of Things. So today we are going to be discussing about some sensors and of course I'm going to be telling you what important thing you need to consider when you are going to be working in IoT. What is IoT, and of course tomorrow we are going to be working on some of a project which is going to be based on the IoT, right? So today I'm just going to be giving you an introduction about IoT platform, what is IoT being used for, and as usual, I personally want that you should be having enough skills in different fields, right? So that if you have knowledge about IoT, if you have knowledge about CCNA, computer networks, programming, cybersecurity, you know that you are going to be having enough skills in different technologies or different industries, platforms in information technology. So it's going to be worth it. All right, and if you are willing to get some certifications from all these different industries, you can basically contact the Education Diary. And once you actually complete all these courses, you are going to be having some real world or real company based projects. And once you complete all these kind of projects, then you are going to be getting up your certification. So yeah, let's start with the IoT of today. So first of all, what is basically IoT? It's going to be the network of physical objects that are connected to the internet using software, sensors, and other technologies. This is something, the definition which the Google gives on. But IoT is something in which you are going to be having devices which are connected with each other, and the functionalities of each device is going to be based on the programming which you are going to be do, right? So if we take the motherboard of a CPU, the motherboard is basically having the task to increase up the speed and accuracy inside the processor, right? So based on what program we write for that motherboard, or what program we write for specific device, is going to be decided by using Arduino or IoT platform, right? So of course, there are going to be several things to consider. Not every chipset is going to be having motherboard. Like suppose if you're having motherboard of CPU, so we cannot actually use that motherboard for the sensors. We can say gaining information by using some sensors, right? That is not possible because the functionality of that motherboard is basically to give the information or increase the processing speed of the computer, right? So in similar way, like if we are having some sensors, we cannot use these sensors to increase the speed of a computer. So this goes vice versa. So you have to understand that not every chipset, if it's a chipset of a phone or if it is a chipset of a Wi-Fi router, we can use and program that chipset and we can basically get information. No, that is not the possible case. So we are having tons and tons of devices in the market in the IT industry. When you purchase these different kind of devices, every device is already having a predefined, we can say, program which is already assembled inside that. Once this predefined device comes at your home, then you can actually use your Arduino software and you can program these kind of predefined devices, and then accordingly these devices can work on. We are going to be checking some of the important things today, which is going to give you a rough idea what I'm trying to say. Now this is the definition. For programming the IoT devices, we are going to be using a software Arduino. Now if you are new to Arduino, so it is having a different form of language, but we are not going to be writing the whole code. Of course, that is going to be something taking tons and tons of time. We are going to be having lots of bugs. We have to debug that, and then we have to build the project and then run the project. So instead, we are going to be using ChatGPT. But as usual, we are not going to be using that case today. All right, we are going to be using that tomorrow. But as usual, we can take codes from ChatGPT, or if we want, we can take from the GitHub repository. So just to explain you, just to give you an idea that how actually the things work. But yeah, if you know Arduino programming, it's much better. But if you don't know, so that's totally fine. We can basically go with the GPT. All right. But yeah, using all these kind of technologies is really important. As I said, that in the field of information technology, if you have skills in different fields, it's very important. So how to use the devices, how to connect the devices, how to program the devices, if any kind of bug or if any kind of problem happens, how to resolve that. That is something which you should know at least. But of course, if writing the code is the case, so that's fine because GPT is there. We are having tons and tons of repositories which already gives us the code. We can improve the efficiency of the code, but that is something in another case. Alright, by the way, I hadn't installed the Arduino yet, but I'm going to be telling you how to install Arduino on your Mac, what are some settings, configurations which you need to consider on, and based on that, you are going to be using up your IoT devices. So today we are going to be checking out some of the sensors which I already have, and I'm already having a list of some sensors which I already issued, right? But if you don't have some sensors, so my main request is going to be try to purchase the sensors which I'm going to be telling you. It's not very expensive, but some of the sensors are industry based, and sometimes you cannot get these kind of sensors. By the way, we can also use Arduino in hacking or in cybersecurity. So that is something we can use, right? So we have tons and tons of cases. As I say that if you want to link one of a field to any other field, you can link that, right? So IoT with hacking, IoT with security, IoT with computer vision, IoT with AI, so IoT with big data. So we are having tons and tons of combinations which we can take, and we can go on and study on that as well, or that is something which is based on your creativity. All right, so let's go with the very basic thing, which is going to be Arduino Uno. Now this is a very important thing, right? Now this is something which is really important. So if you see, this is Arduino Uno revised version 3 or revision 3. But personally, I think so I have this kind of Arduino with myself. So this is basically the Arduino Uno. Now we have different variations of Arduino, right? This is kind of like a chipset, you can say. Like we are having Arduino Uno. We are going to be having more and more Arduinos. Basically, I just use Arduino Uno for myself. But I think so there is one more Arduino with the name Leonardo. So this is basically another kind of Arduino chipset. So this looks like this. Now Arduino Leonardo is basically going to be having a very big difference when it's compared with Arduino Uno. So what I can show you is that if you see here that this cable is basically the type C cable. All right. So when you are going to be giving power to this particular Arduino board, it is going to be having a type C cable, which is the important and the biggest difference. Of course, there are going to be much more differences like the analog signals and the static signals, but that is something not right now we have to go into deep. But in this case, the type C cable is going to be used in Arduino Leonardo. While in Arduino Uno, if I show you, then you can see that in Arduino Uno, we are having this kind of thing, which is basically, again, it's not going to be type C. It is going to be a thick kind of, you can say, wire, right? It's going to be USB cable type, not exactly USB, but yeah. And we are having one more port, which basically can be used in giving the power, which is like a pin, right? So if we are having a charger which is having a pin, so that can be used in order to give the power to the Arduino. Now this is the base machine. You should have this kind of thing. If you are not having this, you're not going to be able to do anything. Now what happens is that if you are having Arduino Leonardo, so let me go with Uno. Right, so yeah, here we are. So now I'm going to be using Arduino Uno because that is something we are going to be specifically going to work on. Now in Arduino Uno, we are going to be having some different pin slots. Right now I'm using very easy language so that you can understand. Now Arduino Uno basically works on three different forms of voltage, that is 3.3 volt and 5V. We are having ground pin, we are having VIN, which is actually the 5 volt. Alright, so VIN actually means 5 volt. We are having some certain pins which are the analog signal values and the power signal slots, and these are the digital signals slots. So what actually all these kind of thing means is that when you connect a machine, when you connect a sensor with the Arduino, so the sensor basically sends some type of signals and the machine has to convert those signals into the signals which the machine can understand. So some of these sensors basically send the analog signals and receive the digital signals, while some machines send the digital signals and get the analog signals, right? So here you can see we are having TX and RX. So TX is basically sending and RX means receiving the signal. So yeah, overall the functionality of this board is to convert the signals into the signal which the machine itself can understand. All right. Now again, you can basically see that these are some different slots. Now remember that when you are going to be using Arduino, you have to be very careful like what wires you are putting in what kind of pin slot. If it's going to be different, suppose if the machine requires 3.3 and somehow if you put the pin in 5 volt, so the machine can basically get crashed or it can basically get fused. All right, so it's not going to be working the next time, so it's going to be destroyed because the motherboard or the chipset is going to be destroyed. All right, so pay attention whenever you are going to be using Arduino. The pin sets should be very important, right, and appropriate. The next thing is let's go with something Arduino wires, or we are known as jumping cables. So this is something which you should have cables. Like if I go here, so you can see that how actually these cables look like. Now at the one end you can see we are having some pins, while on the other hand we are having the storage from where we can insert pins. All right, so one end is going to be having pins, one end is going to be kind of like a slot in which you can insert pin. So if you want to expand your Arduino device by using jumping cable, so you can actually go and proceed with all these things. So this is something, the second thing which is required, right? So Arduino Uno, jumping cables, and third thing is going to be breadboard. So what the breadboard is, it's going to be used for giving up the power to the Arduino from your computer or from your machine. So if you see here, so this is kind of like an Arduino project, and here the white base which you are watching is basically an Arduino breadboard. All right, now it is going to be having live section and a ground section. So the positive is showing you about the live and the negative blue line is showing you about the ground or the neutral section. Now the important thing in the Arduino is that you have the power in vertical as well as in horizontal spots. Like suppose if I zoom this, you can see that we are having some small holes, right? Now you have to remember that in these holes, the power is basically supplied in horizontal as well as vertically. So you have to create a circuit in order to make your electricity run from your machine to the Arduino. All right. Now here you can see that some of the cables are connected from the live connection and they are giving the power to this particular line. All right. And these are going to be connected with where? Arduino. So all these jumping wires are basically going to be connected in the some slots or some pins of the Arduino, which we had discussed earlier, which is 3.3V, 5V, RX, TX, or A1, A2 digital pins or analog pins, right? Based on the program, based on what we want to achieve. And these are some sensors which are going to be used inside the breadboard, and the proper function is going to be by using these sensors. So overall you can say that the Arduino is basically converting our sensor signals into the signals which the machine can understand, and then based on that it is going to be executing the program, and then the sensors are going to receive that program, and then the sensors are going to be acting accordingly to the program. So this is the overall structure of what the Arduino looks like. All right, these are three important things which you should have: Arduino Uno, jumping wires or jumping cables, as well as a breadboard. Now apart from that, you can basically have some sensors which we are going to discuss right now, that how the sensors actually looks like and what we can do with different kind of sensors. So the very first sensor which I'm personally having is Hall magnetic. So if I'm going to be searching this, so exactly what I'm having, let me see, is going to be this one. So I'm having this kind of sensor, right? So this is actually, I'm personally having this kind of sensor, Hall magnetic. Now what is the use of this sensor? Let's see, let's check out. So it is basically designed to detect the Hall effect and convert its findings into electronic data, either to switch a circuit on and off, provide a measurement of varying magnetic field, be processed by an embedded computer, or displayed on an interface. So basically it checks for the what? Magnetic field, right? Now this is something you have to study. Now there are tons and tons of sensors, but yeah, every sensor has written on their image or machine that what is the number of that sensor, or kind of like that. So you can actually write the number and you can simply search by using Arduino. So you can go into the images and you can see if you are having that sensor's image on Google or not, right? So yep, Hall magnetic sensor is personally I'm having right now. Apart from that, we are going to be having a different sensor which is TEM Arduino, and the model number is 18B20. So here you can see as soon as I write 18B20, so basically I got, and I can go into the images, and I can basically write sensor. So here we are. Now this is the sensor which I am having, DS18B0, but personally I'm just having 18B20 written, so I just wrote like this. Now this is the sensor which I am having. So it's DS18B20 temperature sensor. So of course the name itself is suggesting that this sensor is going to be used for that temperature. So if like temperature is low, so there can be a program which can actually make an alarm, or if a temperature is really high, so based on like the program, right? So suppose if there is a fire in a room or in a home, so this sensor can actually detect like as soon as the temperature goes beyond the limit in the program. Suppose if we just give the program 30 degrees Celsius, but as soon as there is a fire and it is having 50 degree or 60 degrees Celsius, so as soon as the temperature goes above 30 degrees Celsius, so it's going to be creating an alarm or something like that. But of course this is not going to be creating an alarm, right? Because this is just a sensor, so it's going to detect. Now of course we have to program and connect a speaker with this, of course with the Arduino, and once we do the programming, so as soon as it goes above 30 degrees Celsius, so it's going to be, the speaker is going to be working. So yeah, this is going to be the use of the DS18B20 temperature sensor. Now apart from that, we are going to be having analog temp sensor, so analog temperature sensor. So exactly this is something which I am having with myself, KY013 analog temperature sensor. So again it's going to be of course used in the temperature sensing only, right? So it's not going to be different. All right, the next is going to be IR emission sensor, IR emission sensor, and it's going to be like this. So I'm having this particular sensor with myself. Now what is the use of this? Let's study. So it's basically used for infrared technology to detect objects or changes in the environment. So suppose if the object, suppose any object has been placed near to it and it has been removed, so it can be used in theft also, all right? Or it can be used in opening a door. So as soon as a person comes near to the sensor, so the door automatically opens, and if someone goes outside, so the door automatically closes. So we are having tons and tons of different use cases which we can go with. All right, now the next is going to be IR receiver sensor. So if I'm going to be writing IR receiver sensor, so here we are. Now of course this is also going to be working on infrared only, or radiation sensitivity of optoelectronic component with a spectral sensitivity in the infrared wavelength range. So yeah, we are going to be having something similar only, so nothing like that. Next is going to be, we are having DHT11. Now this is sensor which I think so we are going to be using tomorrow, because it's vastly used. It's like majorly being used by the people and industry based. So of course this is basically a temperature and humidity sensor. So if you remember, we were having DS18B20 sensor which was already going to be used only for temperature, but DHT11 is having temperature as well as humidity. All right, so this is something which we are going to be using tomorrow. Now we are having tons and tons of things. Right now in front of me I'm having a flame sensor, I'm having RGB LED sensor, buzzer, we are having tracking sensor, small sound, big sound, relay, joystick, mini read. You know that I'm having tons and tons of things, so I'm not going to be searching all these things because it's going to be taking a lot of time. The main purpose was to show you that how easy it is to purchase these sensors. You can actually go and you can check on Amazon if you want to purchase. So suppose if I want to purchase from Amazon, so I can simply write this, you can go onto the all, and we are having DHT11 humidity sensor. So that page was not available, and here we are, right? So apart from that, you can simply search for the Arduino. All right, so if you're going to be searching for Arduino, not Nano, of course Nano is also a version of Arduino. So this is Arduino Uno, right? Here you can go and you can check for Arduino Uno, $14, $15, yeah, something like that. And after that, you can basically go for the Arduino sensor box or sensor kit, and it is going to be having 37 sensors of around $20, right? It's going to be how much? 1600, 1500, 2000 Indian currency, if I'm not wrong, right? So yeah, you are having tons and tons of sensors which you can purchase. 48 sensors it is having. So you have to study these kind of sensors, that yes, this sensor is going to be used in this purpose, and then you can make a combination. Let's do this, let's do that, and you can have something which is creatively, right? So suppose if I make a robot face or something like that, and I can basically put the computer vision technique in that, that as soon as a person comes in front of that, so the robot actually greets hello, and the person goes back, so the robot basically says bye. So all these things can be done by using an IoT platform as well, by using the computer vision techniques. All right, we are having gas sensor, pressure sensor, we are having heartbeat sensors. So if you want, we can basically create or purchase a heartbeat sensor also, which is going to be working based on the heartbeats. So you can collect the data like from the big data. You can go to the websites like Kaggle, right? So suppose if I search here, what I can search is heartbeat data Kaggle. So suppose if I go here, so you can see that ECG heartbeat categorization, heartbeat sounds, heart rate predictions. So basically you can get the data sets, and then you can program your Arduino. So based on the heartbeat sensor which you are going to be having, so it can detect the heartbeats, right? So we are having tons and tons of use cases. Now the next thing is that, as I told you, that we are having one Arduino Uno, but as usual we cannot connect this Arduino Uno with the Wi-Fi. Like suppose if I want to go to my university, or if I go anywhere to any other country, now what I want is that I want to check the humidity and temperature of my room, right? So basically I'm in India and I want to check the temperature and humidity of my room in Korea, right? So for that actually we are going to be connecting our Arduino Uno with the Wi-Fi of my room. So as soon as I basically check my phone in India, I can basically see, okay, my room's temperature is this, that's totally fine. And but suppose I can also install any kind of CV project, computer vision project, by using IoT. That suppose if any of the person comes in my room or something like that, I can basically get a notification on my phone that someone has come into your room, or any kind of object has been detected in front of the IoT. So we are having tons and tons of cases, right? This is just an example. So now sitting in India, how can I basically monitor my room's temperature? So for that, we have to connect our Arduino with the Wi-Fi, right? Now the Arduino itself is not having any Wi-Fi module. It's not having a chipset which can basically connect to the Wi-Fi. For that, the majority of the people use ESP32, right? So they basically use what? ESP32 Arduino. Now this is something the ESP32 chipset looks like. Or sometimes people also say ESP1866, if I'm not wrong. ESP8266, yeah, that is. So here you can see ESP8266. My bad. So what I can write is Wi-Fi module. So here we are. Now we can basically use ESP8266 Wi-Fi module to connect our Arduino machine with the Wi-Fi of our room, right? And then we are basically having an application through which we can install in our phone, and then we can see our temperature and humidity of our room. But it's kind of like into the advanced course. It's going to be taking some time. But what I personally want to tell you is that we're having lots of use cases of using Arduino. All right. Now, the problem with the ESP8266 is that in the nowadays, the ESP8266 is having lots of issue when we are going to be connecting with the Arduino, because this is small and it's really hard to configure, especially on the Mac operating system. So for that, we are going to use another form of Arduino, which is known as Node MCU. So if I just close this Node MCU, and here we are. Now this is again an Arduino different chipset. As I told you, we are having Arduino Uno, we are having Arduino Leonardo, we are having Arduino Mini, Nano. So we are having lots of versions of Arduino, and this is one of that. Now why I want to suggest you this one is that it is already having a pre-built Wi-Fi module, and it is already working as an Arduino chipset. So you're having all the pins which are essential in order to make your Arduino work. So personally, if you have this, so you don't need the Arduino Uno. It is also going to be taking power, right? So here you can see it is already having a what we can say cable C. We are having, so C type cable, of course, we are having for this particular node MCU. So again, if you are using Arduino Uno, for that you have to use ESP8266, which is the small version, and it's really hard to configure ESP8266 with the Arduino Uno. But if you have Node MCU, so you don't need any other Wi-Fi module because it is already having a pre-default Wi-Fi module in itself. So if you have Node MCU, it's awesome, right? Now, again, we are going to be having this, and the another thing which you know or you might not know is Things of IoT, if I'm not wrong. This was the name of the website, or cloud website for Arduino IoT. So basically there was one website, ThinkSpeak, I don't remember, but personally I would love to use this one, right? You can basically install the application on your phone as well, Blink. Now you're having tons and tons of things on this particular project, but yeah, it's majorly being used by the industry-based software engineers as well as the engineers, cloud platform engineers. And basically you can log in into this particular website, and then by using this application we can see the temperature and humidity of our room, right? But yeah, again, we have to write an Arduino program, and then we have to install that Arduino program into our Node MCU or Arduino Uno, and then basically we can create a dashboard. Then the sensors are going to be working, and then only we can see the that output results from our sensor. So as I told you that this webinar is something not going into very deep advanced projects, because it's going to be taking a lot of time and it takes a lot of practical stuffs to do. But right now you might not know how to do all these different kind of practicals. But in future, if we bring the course on the IoT, so you're going to be working on some of the real world projects on the IoT. So if you want the certification in IoT, you can basically contact the education diary. All right. Now this was the overall experience of today's webinar. Tomorrow we are going to be making a very small project, and I'm going to be show you that how basically we can work on the Arduino software, and how we are going to be writing a code. How can we see the output result if it's actually working or no? Because by YouTube streaming you might not be able to see, but there is going to be a way I'm going to show you that it's actually working or not, right? So that's it for today, guys, and hope so you enjoyed the webinar introduction based on the IoT platform. And if you have any form of question, so make sure to send email to the education diary, or if you have any other problem, make sure to comment down. And take care everyone. See ya. Bye bye.